Look at this. Golden wheat, swaying in the wind, in the middle of Siberia. Behind it, nothing but frozen tundra. No warmth, no sun, no soft soil, just ice, just silence, just white earth stretching forever. This field produced over 4 tons of wheat from a single harvest. And the ground beneath it, this exact frozen patch of Siberian tundra, had not grown a single crop in recorded human history. This is not an experiment in a lab. This is not computer animation. This is real, and we're going to show you exactly how it happened, step by step. But first, we go back to the beginning, back to when this land was exactly what it looks like now. Frozen, lifeless, forgotten. Siberia covers over 5 million square miles. It is the coldest inhabited region on Earth. In winter, temperatures drop to -60 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground here is called permafrost. It means the soil beneath your feet has been frozen solid, without melting, for over 10,000 years. Nothing grows in permafrost. Nothing is supposed to. But someone decided to try anyway. His name was Alexei, a farmer from a small village called Ust-Ilimsk. Population, 82 people. Most of them elderly. Most of them leaving. Alexei was 47 years old. He had farmed his whole life. But never here. Never on frozen ground like this. He had one idea. One simple, strange idea. He called it thawing from below. Not from the sun. Not from above. From underneath. He began in March, the coldest month, when everyone said, "Do not start yet. Wait for summer." He did not wait. He brought one machine. A modified industrial soil ripper. It had 3 long steel teeth, each tooth 18 inches long. He drove it slowly across the frozen tundra, back and forth, back and forth. The teeth cracked the permafrost open, not deep, just enough, just 20 inches down. Then came the black mixture. He called it his recipe. Dark decomposed peat moss from the riverbank, mixed with wood ash from burned Siberian pine, mixed with coarse river sand. He poured this mixture into every crack, every broken line in the frozen earth. Then he waited exactly 11 days. The dark mixture absorbed heat from the pale winter sun. It was slow, invisible, but underneath the surface, the ice was beginning to let go. 11 days passed. Alexei walked back onto the field. He knelt down. He pressed 2 fingers into the dark mixture. And for the first time, the ground gave way. Not much, just slightly. But that was enough. The permafrost beneath had softened. Just a thin layer. Just 4 inches deep. But those 4 inches, they changed everything. Now came the seeds. Alexei did not use ordinary wheat seeds. He had spent 3 winters searching for the right variety. He found it in a seed vault in Novosibirsk. A cold-resistant Siberian wheat strain, developed by Soviet scientists in 1962. Almost forgotten. Never commercially grown. It was designed for exactly this. Short summers, hard soil, extreme cold. He opened the small cloth bag. The seeds were small, dark brown, almost black. He placed each one carefully. Not dropped, not scattered. Placed. 2 inches deep into the dark mixture, spaced exactly 6 inches apart, row by row, for 3 days straight. Alone. No machine could do this part. The spacing had to be perfect. Too close, the roots would compete. Too far, the thin warmth would be wasted. Then he covered each seed with a thin layer of the same black mixture and pressed it down gently with his palm, like tucking something in. Like he believed it would wake up. Nothing happened for 7 days. The field looked exactly the same. Dark lines. Frozen ground. Empty sky. Alexei checked every morning. Every single morning. He would kneel down, press his fingers into the dark mixture, and wait. On the 8th day, he almost missed it. A tiny crack in the dark soil. Thinner than a fingernail. He leaned closer. And there it was. A single pale green shoot, no thicker than a thread, pushing up through the black mixture, through frozen Siberian earth, reaching toward a sun that was barely there. Alexei did not speak. He just sat back on his heels and stared. By day 12, there were hundreds of shoots. By day 18, the entire first row had broken through. Pale green, fragile, trembling in the cold wind, but alive. The dark peat mixture was working exactly as Alexei had planned. It absorbed heat during the short Siberian days. It held that warmth overnight, like a blanket wrapped around each root. By week 5, the shoots were 4 inches tall, thin green blades standing in the frozen tundra, swaying in winds that should have killed them. But they did not fall. This wheat had survived Soviet winters. It remembered the cold, and it grew anyway. By week 8, the field had changed color, from gray and black to green. Week 12, the wheat was now waist-high, standing tall in the Siberian wind, each stalk straight, each head heavy, full of grain. Alexei walked through the field slowly. He ran his hand along the tops of the stalks, the heads bent slightly under his palm. That was the sign. They were ready. He had waited 84 days for this moment. 84 days of checking the field every morning. 84 days of watching the temperature. 84 days of believing in something nobody else believed in. He called his neighbor Dmitry, the only other farmer left in the village. Together, just 2 men, they began the harvest. No combine harvester. The field was too small. The ground still too uneven. They used scythes, long wooden handles, curved steel blades, the same tool Russian farmers used 1,000 years ago. Stroke by stroke, row by row, the golden wheat fell in clean bundles, each bundle tied with a twist of straw, laid flat on the frozen ground. By the end of day 2, the entire field was cut for 0.2 tons of wheat from a single field on land that had never grown anything. Alexei picked up one bundle. He held it up to the pale Siberian sky. The golden grain caught the light, and for the first time in 84 days, he smiled. Alexei did not tell anyone at first. He just stacked the wheat bundles, counted them, weighed them for 0.2 tons. He wrote the number down in a small notebook, circled it once, then made tea. It was his neighbor Dmitry who told someone. Dmitry mentioned it to a man passing through the village, a government agricultural inspector. The inspector did not believe it. He asked to see the field. Alexei took him there the next morning. The inspector walked the empty harvested field slowly. He looked at the dark peat lines in the ground. He picked up a handful of the mixture. He looked at the permafrost walls of the broken soil trenches. He did not speak for a long time. Then he took out his phone and made a call. 3 weeks later, 2 scientists arrived from Novosibirsk Agricultural University, then a journalist from a regional newspaper, then a film crew from Moscow. All of them standing in this small harvested field, in the middle of the Siberian tundra, asking the same question. How? Alexei answered the same way every time. Calmly, quietly. He pulled out his small notebook and showed them the numbers, the temperature logs, the soil mixture ratios, the seed spacing records, everything written by hand, in pencil, by one farmer, who simply refused to believe the ground was dead. The scientists spent 4 days on that field. They took soil samples. They measured temperatures at different depths. They analyzed the root systems of the remaining wheat stubble. And slowly, the picture became clear. What Alexei had done was not luck. It was physics. Simple, elegant, undeniable. Here is what happened beneath the surface. The frozen permafrost reflects heat. Pale gray soil bounces sunlight back into the sky. Nothing is absorbed. Nothing is stored. But dark material, black material, does the opposite. It pulls heat in, holds it. The dark peat mixture Alexei poured into those cracks acted like a solar battery. During the short Siberian days, it absorbed every available ray of sunlight. At night, when temperatures dropped back below freezing, the dark mixture released that stored heat slowly, warming the soil around each seed from within. Like a furnace buried underground, the wood ash did something else entirely. It changed the soil chemistry. Permafrost soil is highly acidic. Wheat cannot grow in acid soil. The alkaline ash neutralized that acidity perfectly. and the river's sand opened tiny air pockets in the mixture, allowing oxygen to reach the roots. Every single ingredient had a purpose. None of it was accidental. Alexei had figured this out, not in a laboratory, not with a computer, but alone, in winter, in a small wooden house, with a notebook and a pencil, and 40 years of watching the ground. Winter came again. The field went white. The dark peat lines disappeared under snow. The scientists went back to Novosibirsk. The journalists went back to Moscow. The film crew packed up their equipment. And Alexei was alone again. Just him. Just the tundra. Just the cold. But something had changed. The soil had changed. Alexei walked the field in December. He pressed his boot into the snow-covered ground. Beneath the snow, beneath the frost, the dark peat mixture was still there, still intact, still holding its structure. He knelt and dug with his bare hands. 6 inches down, the soil was not frozen solid, not like before. It was firm, cold, but workable. The mixture had changed the ground permanently. One season was enough. The dark peat had bonded with the broken permafrost, created something new, something between tundra and farmland. Alexei stood up slowly, looked at the field, then looked beyond it, at the vast frozen tundra stretching in every direction. Hundreds of acres, all of it dead, all of it waiting. He went home, made tea, opened his notebook to a fresh page, and began drawing. A much bigger field, 3 times the size, with the same dark trenches, the same black mixture, the same careful spacing. But this time, he would not be alone. 3 young men from the village agreed to help. His neighbor Dmitri's 2 sons, and a 19-year-old named Pavel, who had been planning to leave Siberia forever, until he saw the wheat. Pavel Sorokin was 19 years old. He had grown up in Ust-Ilimsk. All his life, just tundra, just cold, just silence. His father had left when Pavel was 7, gone to Novosibirsk for work, never came back. His mother worked at the village's only small shop, 6 days a week. Pavel had finished school 2 years ago. There was no university in Ust-Ilimsk, no factory, no office, no future. At least, that is what everyone said. He had saved enough money for a one-way bus ticket to Novosibirsk. The bag was packed. The ticket was in his coat pocket. The bus came through Ust-Ilimsk every Thursday. It was a Wednesday evening when Dmitri mentioned the wheat. Pavel did not believe it at first. Nobody grew wheat in Siberia. Everybody knew that. But the next morning, he walked to the field, alone, before anyone else was awake. He stood at the edge of the harvested field, looked at the dark peat lines in the frozen ground, looked at the cut wheat stubble still standing in the rows. And something happened that he could not explain. He reached down, picked up a single leftover grain of wheat. It was small, golden, perfectly formed, grown from this ground. This impossible ground. He held it between his fingers for a long time. Then he put it in his coat pocket, next to the bus ticket. He went home, and he unpacked his bag. March came again. The snow began to thin. Not melt, just thin. In Siberia, that is the signal. Not warmth, not spring, just the first hint that winter is releasing its grip. By 1 degree, Alexei was already outside. He had marked the new field boundaries in February. Wooden stakes driven into the frozen ground, orange string pulled tight between them. The new field was 11 acres. The original had been just under 4. This time 4 people. Alexei, Dmitri's 2 sons, Ivan and Grigory, and Pavel. They began at sunrise. The soil ripper ran for 3 full days. Back and forth, cracking the permafrost open in long parallel lines. But this time Alexei had made one change. The trenches were deeper. 28 inches instead of 20. Because the scientists in Novosibirsk had told him something. The deeper the dark mixture, the longer it holds heat overnight. Every extra inch of depth buys 2 more hours of root warmth. So they went deeper. It took twice as long. The steel teeth of the ripper screamed against the frozen ground. Pavel worked the shovel by hand in the corners. where the machine could not reach. His hands blistered by day 2. He did not stop. By day 4, the entire 11 acres were cracked open, ready for the black mixture. And this time, they had 3 times as much of it. Alexei had taught Pavel everything he knew. But now, Pavel was seeing things Alexei had missed. Not because Alexei was wrong, because Pavel was younger. His eyes were fresher. He had no old assumptions to unlearn. Alexei understood this. A real teacher knows when the student has gone further. He does not feel threatened. He feels proud. That evening, Alexei took his own notebook, turned to a fresh page, and wrote one sentence at the top. What Pavel sees that I do not. Then he left the rest of the page blank, ready to be filled. Because the best farmers are never finished learning. Alexei held the notebook for a long time. He did not say anything. He just looked at both numbers. 4.2. 13.6. Then he looked out the farmhouse window. At the frozen tundra beyond the harvested field. Dark, vast, silent. Hundreds of acres. Still untouched. Still waiting. He thought about the seed. That one small dark seed he had placed in the ground 2 years ago. Pressed gently into the black mixture. Like tucking something in. Like he believed it would wake up. It had woken up. And it had brought others with it. He set the notebook down on the golden wheat bundle. Stood slowly. Looked at the field one last time. Then walked toward the farmhouse. To make tea. And start planning year 3. The regional newspaper ran the story first. A small article. Page 7. Headline: Farmer grows wheat on Siberian permafrost. Most people who read it assumed it was an error, a misprint, an exaggeration. But one person did not. A science journalist in Moscow. Her name was Elena Vasilieva. She had spent 15 years writing about climate and agriculture. She read the article 3 times. Then called the newspaper directly. They gave her Dmitri's phone number. Dmitri gave her Alexei's. Alexei answered on the 7th ring. Elena asked one question. Can I come and see it myself? Alexei said, the field is empty now. Harvest is done. Elena said, I will come in spring. When it grows again. She waited 6 months. In March she arrived in Wastelands. On the same Thursday bus. She brought a photographer. And a small video camera. She spent 9 days in the village. She walked every row of the field with Alexei. She interviewed Pavel for 3 hours. She photographed everything. The notebook pages. The soil samples. The seed bags. She published the full story in a national science magazine. 12 pages. 40 photographs. Within 1 week, the story had been read 4 million times. The frozen land had found its voice. And Russia was finally listening. For weeks after the magazine article, 3 black government vehicles arrived in Ust-Ilimsk. On a Tuesday, unannounced. Alexei was in the field when they came. Pavel ran to find him. The delegation was from the Russian Ministry of Agriculture. 5 officials, 2 agronomists, 1 economist, and a man who introduced himself only as Sergei, who said very little, but watched everything. They spent 2 full days on the field, taking their own soil samples, running their own measurements, cross-checking everything against Alexei's notebook. The economist spent half a day with Pavel, going through every cost calculation. How much did the peat mixture cost per acre? How much fuel for the ripper machine? How many man-hours per row? Pavel had every number, written in pencil, in his notebook. On the 2nd evening, the delegation sat with Alexei and Pavel at the small farmhouse table. The room was quiet. The lead official spoke slowly. The ministry wants to support expansion. More land, more equipment, seed funding. In exchange for one thing, full documentation of the method. So it could be replicated anywhere in Siberia. Alexei looked at his notebook, then looked at Pavel. Pavel nodded once. Alexei looked back at the official and said, when do we start?